So it turns out that everything I believed about nuclear waste for most of my life was wrong. This is me in my early 20s waving a banner at an anti-nuclear protest, convinced that radioactive waste glows green and sloshes around in barrels like in The Simpsons and is going to kill us all. But it turns out that nuclear waste doesn't glow. In fact, most of it is unremarkable. Most nuclear waste is solid and stored in robust, reinforced casks designed for safety. These casks are subjected to rigorous testing, including drop tests, crash simulations, and fire exposure to ensure their integrity under extreme conditions, and also because crashing planes into things is kind of fun. In fact, since the casks are engineered to shield us from radiation, they are even safe to hug, which I've also done. The other thing I misunderstood about waste was the quantity of it. I thought there was massive, but that's also not true. The majority of nuclear waste is low to medium level material, like gloves, tools, and protective gear. This kind of waste is also produced by nuclear medicine, for things like cancer treatments. High level waste, also known as spent fuel, is the most radioactive waste produced, which requires specialized storage, but it constitutes a very small portion of the total nuclear waste generated. In fact, all the high level waste ever produced in the world would be able to fit in a single football pitch and be around 15 stories high. To visualize that differently, all the nuclear waste used to power your entire life would fit in a single can of fizzy drink, or for the Americans, a single soda can. Meanwhile, fossil fuels continue to dump their waste into the Earth's atmosphere, and you're inhaling it as you watch this, but many people seem to ignore that while being fixated specifically on nuclear waste. Another thing I got wrong about nuclear waste is to do with radioactivity. I was somewhat radiophobic and I thought that made the waste scary and dangerous. But radiation exposure is a natural part of life and its health effects depend on the type, dose, and duration of exposure. For example, natural background radiation actually varies by location, and near where I live in the UK is a county called Cornwall, where elevated radon levels due to granite geology contribute to higher exposure to radiation. Meanwhile, in Denver in Colorado in the US, the higher altitude leads to increased cosmic radiation exposure. In both instances, it's entirely harmless. I had this misconception about nuclear waste and radioactivity, where I believed that it would stay highly radioactive for many hundreds of thousands of years. I've since learned that unlike other industrial toxic wastes, the principal hazard associated with high-level waste actually reduces significantly with time. This is known as radioactive decay. The amount of time it takes for the radioactivity of radioactive material to decrease to half its original level is called the radioactive half-life, which each half-life that passes, the material becomes less radioactive. Not all at once, but over time, and this is very predictable. Some isotopes in nuclear waste have short half-lives and decay quickly, losing their danger within a few days or years. Others do have longer half-lives and they take decades or centuries, but even those steadily lose their radioactivity. So while some high-level waste does remain hazardous for thousands of years, its danger is decreasing continuously, and it doesn't stay highly radioactive forever, unlike toxic chemicals like mercury and arsenic, which don't degrade at all and do stay dangerous forever. Again, for some reason, most of us don't tend to worry about them. We live in an industrialized civilization where waste is a natural byproduct of our lifestyles. Some of these wastes are hazardous, including lead, mercury, arsenic, cyanide, asbestos, and many other carcinogens and clinical wastes and various pathogens as well. But they are, for the most part, managed carefully. But arguably, of all of them, nuclear waste is actually managed the most carefully. The international scientific consensus is that deep geological repositories are the way to store waste permanently, and by permanently I mean for 100,000 years. These are already used to dispose hazardous waste like arsenic, cyanide, and mercury. And some countries like Finland and Sweden have already developed deep geological depositories. Disused mines can also be used for the same purpose. It's not an unsolvable problem. We take it out of the ground, we use it up, and then we put it back. Everything we do produces waste of some form, including solar panels and wind turbines, which often aren't recycled and end up in landfill sites where they can leach chemicals into the ground. That's not to say that we shouldn't have wind and solar, but just to show how well managed the nuclear waste is comparatively. Many of the misconceptions about nuclear waste have been spread by activists who fear waste as much as they fear cancer. But meanwhile, the most reliable alternative to nuclear energy, coal, is actually causing cancer, respiratory issues, and other serious health problems. When I realised how wrong I was about nuclear waste and then saw for myself how it's managed and stored, I changed my mind and went from someone who protested nuclear energy to someone who hugs it. They say that knowledge is power, and for me, no longer fearing something that I didn't understand has been liberating. I hope it will be for you too, because the true waste is the amount of time and energy we spend worrying about nuclear waste.